lovely episode that we have put together for you this evening. A very good evening to one and all present. My name is Kritika Padode Bhandari, and I'm your host of Educator Speak, a very interesting series that we have curated at View TV by Vijay Bhumi, where on a weekly basis we are joined by eminent educators to talk about all things related to education and students. Today, we are actually gathered here today to discuss a very important topic. Like we all know, we have been talking, on a weekly basis about how this pandemic has been very difficult for students and educational institutions. Nobody had ever imagined that students would be locked up in their homes for so long. It's been close to 14 months now that they have not been able to come to schools, they have not been able to socialize. So it has been a very challenging time for them as well as their parents. And needless to say, for educational institutions, it has been a Herculean task. So today, I think it's important for us to a little bit take a step back and talk about, what must we do to create a good support system for students. We all know that, as adults, everybody's talking about the financial crisis we are going through, the health woes we are going through, but maybe we are not raising enough voices to talk about how do we deal with the younger generation? How do we create a good support system for them at home? Not only about, during the pandemic, but even in, your pre-corona times, what is an ideal, environment that one must create at home? How do schools and, your environment at home actually have to work in tandem together? Because like I think most educators would agree with me, nothing works in isolation. Everything has to go hand in hand. So this is what we want to understand today, that as parents, how do we support children? As educators and parents, how do we draw a balance? How do we work together? There's so many different influences in the lives of children these days. So without, just, probably just be, being a tough disciplinarian with them, how can we get things across to them effectively, get them to be responsible and reasonable adults? So while I'm talking about this very sensitive topic today, I think it was very important for me to invite an educator who has immense experience and who has donned various hats. And I'm so honored and privileged to be joined by Rohan sir today. He has donned multiple hats, be it as a teacher, a principal, an administrator. He's currently the chairperson of the Children's Academy group of institutions in Bombay. He's an ardent educationist and a philanthropist. And because of the multiple hats he's donned, I think, he is in the best position with 39 years and more experience in this field to tell us about, how do we strike this balance between what's going on at home and how do we support our schools and teachers in, ensuring that there is proper growth of the children. He is also the honorary secretary of the Malad Cosmopolitan Education Trust. Sir also functions as the treasurer for MISA, which is the Members of International Schools Association. So considering the diverse experience Sir has, I think it would be lovely to be having this conversation with him today. Thank you very much, Sir, for joining us. It's truly an honor to have you with us this evening.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's I hope I add value to your program today. Looking forward to a good conversation and speak my mind about what I'm not basically a counselor, as I was telling you, but my experience has made me somewhat of a counselor and a mediator between the parents and the children and the teachers, basically. So with that experience, maybe I would be able to put in some light.
I'm certain, sir. And I don't want to keep you away from our audience, which is very eager to hear from you, sir. So let's deep dive into this conversation we have planned for today. So first, sir, I'd just like to understand from you, what are the key components that, are essential to create a supportive environment for children to grow?
Children to grow, or any human being or any animal, any plant, for anything to grow, there has to be a conducive and a supportive environment. So that is a must. So school, home, both are the kind of environment in which the child spends most of his time in. So both these environments have to be good, and it has to be supportive. Now we can look at it in two ways. One is the physical environment we can talk about, and we can talk about the emotional environment around. So in uh, both at home and school, of course, it is very ideal that you have a well lit place, you have a good ambience around, you have comfortable seating for the child, or comfortable lighting for the child. So this is all something which is ideal but not always possible. There will be homes with single rooms, there will be schools with small rooms, and all these things and issues will be there. But what we can do is make it as comfortable as possible. Like we have parents coming from a poorer background, so we know their parents. So when we tell the parents, see, please give him space for study, we also qualify it, that we do not mean that he has to have an independent room, but maybe a corner for him, maybe a place where he can study on his own without any disturbance. Give enough lighting around that place so that he is comfortable. So physical environment is one of the environments where we can make some adjustments and we can work. Also, many a times, as far as the physical environment is concerned, sometimes we have to tell our parents that, see, you have to adjust. So suppose you are staying in a small room and there is, it is your time to watch TV, but your child is studying. So atmosphere which is not disturbing is important when the child is studying. So you require to sacrifice on your time. So this is how the physical environment can be monitored, and of course it has to be safe. That is also one of the important criteria, that children feel safe in the area, in a particular place. So that is one of the as far as physical this environment is concerned. Now, the more important thing is the emotional environment, because this is where a lot of impact happens on a lifestyle in the life of a child. Like if you're talking about, I speak more about the schools, because when we have teachers who are caring, who are responsive, who are non-threatening, it makes a big difference to the child. In fact, if you observe any class, and especially in our school, when we have our observations of teachers, there are certain small things. It's not only going and watching what the teacher is teaching. There are certain small things, like we make a note of how did the teacher enter the class. Was she smiling, or does she come with a stern face inside the room? And as soon as she comes, what is the kind of good morning or good afternoon she gets? This small body language itself tells us what is the relationship between the child and the teacher. That 1 minute or half a minute is sufficient for us to understand what is happening. Because we find that the kind of enthusiasm that is there for certain teachers is not there for certain teachers. It is like, chalo, abhi one more period, I have to attend, abhi kuch bolegi, kuch sunna padega. That kind, or the kind where, okay, I'm going to have a good time now. It is that kind of atmosphere. So we find when we write down, we also mention this. Now, you can also, one more point which is noted down is how responsive children are to a particular teacher. You come to know that how the teacher is. If the children are enthusiastically joining the conversation, going ahead, we know that the teacher is a teacher who is open, who is ready to accept answers, correct the child in a proper way. And there will be a teacher who will shut down the child, who will be abusive almost to the child. If the child is wrong, or the child is, she feels she is disturbed. But this makes a difference. So well-trained teachers are important, and they should also know that training is for that. They should be aware that this affects the children in a big way. So that is one of the most important thing which I feel is the kind of environment the school should have. Apart from that, naturally, having a good counselor is a plus point. Not everybody can afford it, but some senior teacher, some good teacher who has a good rapport with the children can replace, if the school doesn't have the resources, they can always have a teacher who works as a semi counselor after school or during the school hours, giving some time. So that is also plays a very, I think, important thing. Then there are small things about the school, like the kind of activities that are there for the child. So these kind of activities also do help the child to, like, the to develop well. Having debates in the school, having activities in the school, having programs in the school, and having multiple choice subjects in the schools, which will be fun subjects. If you see NEP, it has been talking about it, that there has to be fun subject, something which is not child is not only worried about the assessment in that. So these kind of subjects, this also helps. So basically, this is, I think, the emotional support, the kind of environment which we can give to the child, it goes in both the places. So that is my take, that all these things help. The teaching methodologies helps. All of these helps in creating the complete environment for a child to grow properly.
Right. So I think that's wonderfully articulated. So you have covered some very important aspects that are essential to create a supportive environment at home as well as school. It's important for us to look into the emotional well-being of the child at home, as well as creating a conducive physical environment, as well as I think at school, you've made some really remarkable points, and I think it's noteworthy for all our educators, fellow educators who are joining us here today, right, which is important. Like, all of us believe that it's important to have a counselor in school so that students can pour out their hearts. Teachers also have to be sensitized in the way they're addressing the classroom, the way they're dealing with the students. Even I think it's a wonderful thing that you suggested that even if you may not have a professional counselor, giving the sort of responsibility to a very senior teacher who has the constant experience of dealing with students, that would definitely, that experience would help in working with students. And you're absolutely right when it comes to the NEP, with the kind of I think the leverage that you've been, schools have been given in terms of the plethora of subjects that they are going to be offering, the kind of activities. I think definitely, that would add a lot more color to the life of students at school. So, sir, we were just talking about this a bit earlier before the episode started, and you were saying that how in your experience, a lot of times you have had to actually play a mediator between parents and students. So, I would like to know from you that what is the role that you think that parents play are to play in children's lives today? I mean, gone are the days when parents were like strict disciplinarians, and whatever the parents would say, that would be the end of it. It's etched in stone. That sort of an approach. I mean, nowadays children want a reason. They will ask why for everything. So, what is the role of parents? How do modern parents balance between authority and empathy when they're dealing with their children in these times?
Uh, I think the balance between empathy and authority has been, it's not a question of modern parenting. If there has been parenting, as long as there has been parenting, there has been a balance of this. If the balance is disturbed, it only will lead to disaster. Now, as far as modern times and the yesteryears are concerned, there is a change in the percentage, you can say, of how the authority and empathy are mixed or balanced. It is not a perfect balance. It is sometimes more, one is sometimes less. So if you see Esther years, I think the distinction was very clear. Father, disciplinarian figure; mother, empathy figure. So कुछ हुआ mother माँ के पल्लू के पीछे. So very clear where you have to go. So this is how it was. But today it doesn't work. It has changed. Both parents now take equal responsibilities for both. And if they don't, if there is no synchronization between the two, your children are going to take advantage of you. They are going to play you because children are naturally smart and they understand all these things. So understanding between the parent is very important, that who is going to do what at what time and how do you support the other one. Both things have to go together. And you also have to understand that the age of the children matter. When sometimes in the younger children, authority works better. Sometimes empathy always works with them. As the children grow, you have to reduce your authority. Maybe it would have worked with you by having showing authority to your child and making him do what you wanted him to do. But as the child grows, you will have to change. Otherwise, there is going to be a clash in the family. So you require to understand that this is not something that we can put a some parameters to, that this is how it is going to work. It is ever changing, and it will keep on changing in with every situation, with every age group. Everything is going to keep on changing. Sometimes this works, sometimes that works. So we do not know exactly what is going to work. But what we know is that basically empathy nowadays works better than disciplining. And for that, what we have to do is also somewhat clear, that if you want it to work nowadays, as you mentioned, children require clarity. You have to be clear about it. If you have clear guidelines and are consistent with making them follow that guidelines, then you don't require to go into a time where you have to use your authority. It works without that also. But so sorry. It can go, it can with minimum of authority it can work. And sometimes you and you have to also be model figures. You cannot tell something and do something. Like suppose you are telling your child that you have to be home by 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock, whatever. Now, if the mother or the father is habituated to go out, come home at 10:30, 11, it's normal, fine. After work, I want to let my hair down. I cannot go home and immediately after that. So when you create an atmosphere and then you ask him to do something else, it doesn't work. These all things are all connected to each other. So when you are doing, you have to be careful. You have to understand. Sometimes even children have to be told that, sometimes there is an argument usually with this coming late and all these things usually happens, that why am I being called at 9 o'clock when my friend's father doesn't tell her anything even if she is out at 11 o'clock? Why am I not allowed a sleepover when my friend is allowed a sleepover? Now you may have your reasons and all, you may discuss your reasons and all, but sometimes it happens that when you are looking at certain things and you say, no, my safety of my child is somewhere is in danger. So sometimes you also have to put down your foot and say, you do this because I say so. I don't want to give you any more reasons. This is how it is working. This is how I work. I am home. You also have to be home. It rule applies for me and it applies for you. So this is how it works. Sometimes, as I said, parents have to work in tandem. As the children grow up, you require to maybe play emotional blackmail, the kind of mummy roles in the Hindi films. The it works well. So sometimes that is also important. You know that your child has done something wrong. You know that the father has reprimanded. Now the mother is in a dilemma. What do I do? So how do I handle this now? My father has gone to one corner and the daughter has gone to another corner. Now how do I manage this? So you require to see the age group, especially teenagers, very difficult. So at that times we suggest to our parents that you require to sometimes play the emotional game. So maybe you tell your daughter, see, okay, this is something which has gone wrong, and I think your father is right, but it is not, the punishment is only for you. I am also ready to, it is also my fault that I allowed you to do this and I did not stop you, and today there is a problem. So I am going to share your punishment. So maybe you say, okay, I am not going to have my dinner today. I'm foregoing my dinner because of that. And maybe you eat it afterwards in your bedroom. That is a different question. But then the child feels that no, I am not alone, and my mother also feels that this is something, there is that something, maybe something should have been worked out better. So this kind of things do help. And as I said, sticking to a timetable is the best. Lending them a year, because they are at that age group, they require somebody to speak to, and the kind of atmosphere which you create at home is going to a large extent define this, that whether they are going to talk to you or they are going to talk to somebody else. So as far as these times are concerned, that is, I am talking about the pandemic times, I would say empathy more than anything else, because today their whole social life is disrupted. So you require to uh, compensate for it, and you cannot basically compensate totally. But what you can, because friends are friends and you are parents, these two roles cannot be mixed, and nobody should try to mix it. If you mix it, there is going to be trouble. So that is not, so you, as far as these times are concerned, I would say, first of all, because uh, what I would say is that first of all, you should be less stressed, because it is not only the child that is stressed during this time. The parents are also stressed. So you require to be aware that I do not pass on this stress to the child. You keep on watching TV all the time. ये मर गया, वो मर गया, इतना मर गया, इतना हो गया, ऐसा हो गया, and you are worried all the time. You are going to shed it to your, transfer it to your child. So you require to be calm. You require to first understand the that how much of these things should the child know, and whatever child knows, we make sure that the child knows is correct information, not WhatsApp university, that everybody is sending something, and there is a total mess out there. We do not know who is telling what is white fungus, black fungus, and then yellow fungus. I don't know, tomorrow pink is going to come out, which is the latest color. I have no idea about it. But this kind of things are there around. So during this period, it is very important. So here also the timetable is very, very important. Here also, like, because they don't have to get up in the morning, maybe. So they tend to sleep late, maybe 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. So you require to have a clear timetable that everybody is going to sleep at 11 o'clock. Okay, previously it was 9:30 to 10, now it is 11 o'clock. But that is it. So having timetables, having consistency in that, all these things are still today important, even in today's time. And maybe get them to involve in the household activities, something which they love to do. Like if they see that father never cleaned the house earlier, but today he's being telling that, okay, this is my responsibility, I'll do this, I'll do the bed in the morning, and I'll clean this room. So maybe the child also will look at it as, say, okay, let me also take up some responsibility. And I see that most of the houses this has worked. Everywhere, wherever my friends or circle where I meet, I have seen that this has worked. Children have become a part. Children have learned, children who never learned cooking, youngsters, they are loving to cook, because they also felt that they have been involved in that. So this kind of thing in today's times, involving the children in this day-to-day activities, because they don't have any other activity to do. So these kind of things will definitely help. So I feel that is how you have to balance between these two things. Authority, as I said, with the age, lesser of authority, more of empathy is how the balance should be.
Wonderful, sir. I think very important points you have made there, sir. The fact that, there's no clear-cut answer to this, right? It's a gray area. I mean, it's so situation specific, and, depending on the situation, you need to deploy different kind of tools to be able to, deal with, the child. And again, it's very specific also to the age group that the child is in.
Exactly.
And I think a very important point that you've driven home here is the fact that we need to lead by example.
Yeah.
We cannot set rules for them which we do not adhere to. And I think a wonderful example of, helping in household chores. I mean, right now what has happened is that, they have nowhere to go, like us, right? Aren't we all just feeling so frustrated being at home? I mean, all that we do is that we tune into, TV, and there we are exposing ourselves to all the kinds of news, which is not so great at this point of time. or we're just sitting on our gadgets, we're sitting on our phone, and that's what the children are also seeing at home. And that's why you see, like, nowadays we're talking about students who are going through like massive online addiction. So I think it's so important, and you've made such a good point that if all of us come together in the house and say that, okay, we'll all help in household chores, we need to give them more activities where they can stay away from gadgets, where they can stay away from social
Exactly.
media, and keep them like creatively engaged. And I think that's where the point of having a timetable makes so much sense, that to have like a timetable, your eating time, your sleeping time, keep time for probably tuning into your Netflix or whatever, like some time for that, like a well balanced timetable where you're taking care of everything, and physical fitness also, which is getting compromised right now because of the pandemic. So now, you did touch upon this very briefly when you were responding to this question. But, usually, like you said, students in pre-corona times would end up spending so much time at school. And, the counselors in school, the teachers in school would be very quick in picking up, signs when they would see the children are disturbed. They are not like, mentally feeling that good. So now that children are at home, that responsibility has completely fallen on the shoulders of the parents. So what are the signs in your experience where a parent should sit up and take notice that, hey, something is not right with the child right now?
Um, uh, as far as behavior or warning signs are concerned, very difficult question, because again, as I said, these are all gray areas. I could put it in this way that parenting is an art, it is not a science. So you can't have benchmark parameters set that this is the trigger point and this after this there is danger. There is a boiling point of water, after that there is danger, or about any acid or anything. Exactly after this point it will burst. But here we have, it's completely gray area. So it is very difficult. But generalizing, I can say, is anything excessive is bad, whatever it is. Your child is friendly, but he is over friendly to certain extent. If people are coming and falling on his or her body all the time, I am not happy then. Anything that makes the parent uncomfortable is a danger sign. Now, when I say that, I also qualify it. Danger sign doesn't mean that you take action. Danger sign is your alarm that you are now tuned, that there is something which is worry for me. It may be a factor of worry or it may not be a factor of worry, but for you it is a factor of worry. So once you are worried, then it is important, the next step is not action. In between these two, there has to be a period where you will educate yourself. That may be through going to the school counselor, going through maybe counseling groups that are there, parenting groups that are there, maybe talking to some experts, but making your fear known. Now, if I give an example like child copying, your child is caught copying. Is it a good sign? No. But should you be worried about it and take some action to such an extent that every time he goes out of the house to give an exam, you check his socks and his underwear? So then it becomes excessive. So you require to know that children at that particular age may do such kind of things. And a little bit of counseling, a little bit of fear sorts this out. Stealing, sending a love chit to a girl or a boy, age, they do it. So you stop all boys from calling your child. Say, आज से बात कोई बच्चे लड़के के साथ में discuss, you will not go out or be seen anywhere. No, it will become excessive. These are natural feelings of the child. You have to explain to the child that, Baba, this is not how things are done. This is not your age. You have to wait. You have to understand. You just don't go about such kind of things. it will give what is there are the consequences of it. So making them aware of the consequences is enough. So this is how it is. It is, and this is how it basically is. This is how it works. So once you are having some clarity, I think you can look at the warning signs. You can look at, as I said, there anything that is in excess is dangerous. Like if the child is sleeping for 12, 13 hours, 14 hours, then I would be worried. Something is wrong. It is maybe one day, Saturday, she did not tell you watching, binge watching Netflix up to 5 o'clock, and then next day getting up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Maybe you feel that's fine. Okay, that's okay once in a while. But if this is a general habit, then I would get worried. Excessive tantrums. Child will throw a tantrum. Yes, child is small, you take to the mall, 90% of them will throw a tantrum when they want something. That is normal. There is nothing abnormal in it. But for everything you throw a tantrum and you win, that means there is a behavioral issue that is developing. Same way, as the child grows up, you say something, the child goes and bangs the door. You may go and reprimand the child that this is not acceptable. My door is not that strong. If you want to bang it slowly. Or maybe have your own door separately to bang. But if the child threatens the parent, now I had a case like this, I remember, where the parent came to us and telling that, kya karu? Anytime I stop the child from doing something or I try to reprimand him, he just shows me the ceiling fan. Now this is worrying because you are not only threatening, you are showing some tendencies of what is going on in your mind. So these kind of extreme cases, as I said, the good thing that the parent came to us, counselor was brought into the picture, the child was spoken to, the child was made to understand the some issues which were there at home, which was creating these issues, were sorted out, and the matter was sorted. Because, as I said, the protocol was correctly followed. The parent came to us, we had a counselor, we understood the root cause, matter was sorted out. So anything that is in excess, whenever you feel, is always a danger. And then you have to start looking at the reasons for it, why it has developed. And that is the way I think that you have to be concerned about it, but at the same time not over concerned about it, and being over concerned and taking wrong actions. This will lead to more trouble. That's what my feeling is. That's how I would look at things.
That's very well articulated, sir. I think that's a great thumb rule for all the parents and educators joining us on this conversation today. That any sort of behavior displayed by the child or student that is excessive in nature is something that must come to your radar and must be something that you must register and notice if one sees a pattern. And again, I think this is also very valuable advice that you're giving to parents here, that even if they falter, right? I mean, it's important that we don't become excessive in our countermeasures that we take against them. I mean, we need to make sure that we reason out with them, we reprimand them at that point of time, but we don't go overboard completely where, we completely stifle their freedom, which might lead to a situation where they might rebel even more. So I think that's some very valuable advice coming there. So I must tell you that, on Twitter, a lot of our subscribers have lauded what you said about, creating emotional awareness in schools. And one of our Twitter users actually wanted to ask you that why is it taken so much of time for schools to actually start a conversation about emotional awareness? Why have we lost so much of time on the way?
As I said, this is a progressing thing. Our society is not where the Western society is. So this has taken time, and it is not only, it is the mindset, our mindset. We come from a traditional kind of setup where, as I said, the authoritative work was always more, right? I think right up to my generation also. it is the next generation now, which is, if you ask me personally, I was the authoritative figure in the house, at least to a certain age group. It took time for me also to adjust to this new thought, because this is how we have been brought up. Now, when I was brought up in like that. So I feel that this is the right way of doing it. Why our teachers are so strict? Teachers are, they give left, right, center to a child, because they have come up like that. And they feel today that my teacher did a good thing that I was spanked. Tell me truthfully, do we not all say, when we have that jokes on the WhatsApp where the mother is throwing the chappal or the balan, and we say, my mother did this.
Correct.
And I feel that it is right. So that is into the back of our minds. It takes time for us to change. So that's why schools also are an extension of your family. Schools and families are not different. It is just father, mother replaced by a teacher or a principal. That's it. So otherwise, everything is the same. You are also trying to teach him something at home. We are also trying to teach something in the school. So you are also doing the same thing at home. I am also doing. It is a different thing that now parents have got a different view of how they are, and they are dealing it differently. Schools may not have changed, and that is why there is a clash. How dare you touch my child or say something so like this for my child? But it is, the ultimate aim is the same, but then our, this is differing, and schools will take more time to change, because it's like, your house is like a deer moving, and the school is like an elephant moving. So they are two different kind of creatures which are moving to the same direction, but then the speed at which we will work will be different. So you have to understand where the school is coming from. A traditional school coming with 40 years, 50 years of, like our school, changing is not, it cannot be done suddenly. I can't change a 35 teacher with 25, 35 years experience overnight. It is a slow, gradual change. It happens. Parents, you are new parents. You don't have the burden of what you were doing for your first child and now to your next child in which you have changed. You have already decided that this is how I am going to be. This is how I have looked at everybody, and this is my, I feel this is the correct way. So it is easier for a parent to move rather than for the school to move. So that's my answer. I hope the
I think that's a very
person
accurate
accepts the
analogy
answer, though it
that
may not
you.
be very convincing.
No, so I think that was a very accurate analogy that you drew there. That a house is like a deer, while a school's like an elephant, and I think it's probably the same situation, right? I mean, even for us to talk about, like, in society generally, to talk about mental health, it's taken a lot of years, because it was a topic that was taboo for most of the time, and it has taken, it's a slow evolution process. I mean, changes don't happen overnight. While they're a constant, but there is, an evolution process is slow and steady. And I think that the fact that we have this conversation that is now coming to the forefront, we just need to ensure that, like you said, schools and parents have to be in tandem together. They have to be on the same page so that they are able to complement the efforts that each of the institutions are making towards the development of the child. So before I close the conversation today, I would definitely want to ask you one question, because this was a question that was popularly sent to us by a lot of our subscribers, which was that, in nowadays, in today's time, there's a lot of pressure that students go through. I mean, you have competitive exams, you have board exams, a lot of pressures that they have. Also, general pressures have been added thanks to social media and, them having to grow up so early. So how do we minimize this pressure at home? Because a lot of times we see that, parents also end up adding to a lot of pressure to these students about marks, about career, competitive exam, board exams. So what is your parting advice to all of those parents and educators who are joining us, that how do we minimize the pressure in their lives?
To minimize pressure, first you have to understand why this pressure is there in the first place. Unless you understand that, you cannot minimize the pressure or the stress. I would repeat my sentence. A stressed parent is going to pass on his stress to the child. So if you are bringing your stress, if you are too worried, iska kya hone wala hai, And if you keep on thinking इसका क्या होने वाला है, you are going to put pressure on him, because either it may be marks, or it may be activities, or it may be anything, or the way he behaves, or the way he talks, or whatever. If because pressure comes usually from expectations. So this expectation from the child is, first of all, you have to understand. Many a times I tell to my parents, see, you keep telling that school में बहुत pressure है. But let me ask you a question. You go to any, tell me one child where the teacher says, नहीं नहीं तेरे को तो डॉक्टर बनना ही है. No school, no teacher usually does that. Maybe few exceptions to the rules may be there. Otherwise, the school would usually see the remark, you can do better. There is a difference between telling you can do better or telling that you got only 96, you should have got 98. But you will never find a school writing that, but you will find a parent telling that. कि 96 आएगा तो तेरा क्या होगा? You are not going to get admission in so and so place. You have to get 98. So there is, the stress comes from expectation. So you should be aware of your child's ability. You should be aware of your child's likes, dislikes. If you are not aware of these things, you are going to burden the child. And as I said, there is a limit to the expectations. I couldn't become a doctor because my father had no money. Now I'm going to make you a doctor. तो मुझे नहीं बनना है, मुझे आर्टिस्ट बनना है यार, करेंगे तो then the stress starts. So expectations, ability is important. जब ability ही नहीं है, why are you pressurizing him? Why नहीं, science math तो लेना ही पड़ेगा, नहीं तो आगे जाके तेरा क्या होगा? It's one of the most difficult decisions I feel to convince a parent कि please drop science and maths. And I go through this every year, not once, it is not over. Because every year there is somebody who is, many a times to be, because we are, having 8,000 students, so I can't basically talk to them, but there will be at least one or two every year I get, where I find that the parent comes to me, at kya karu, I am not unable to understand, where I know them very closely. So then I get involved. Otherwise, counselors are there, teachers are there. I can't basically get involved with everybody. But there is the time when I tell them, please understand your child. And sometimes the child also doesn't want to leave because the peer pressure. जिसने science math छोड़ा वो बुद्धू है. So these are all problems and conflicts which are there. The peer pressure which adds to the pressure to already the parents' pressure. So these are the things which are there. So as I said, then they tend to overburden the child, because then you are giving them tuitions after school. Then tuition teacher का homework करने के लिए एक और person, so that work is also completed. So then you people have come out with लड़की है, self defense तो सीखना पड़ेगा, कराटे तो कराना ही पड़ेगा, कराटे के साथ जुड़ो भी करा ही देते हैं, कराटे नहीं मार सकते तो जुड़ो तो मार देगी करेगी, और कभी पानी में गई डूब गई तो swimming भी करा लेते हैं. So if that kind of pressures are there in your mind, you are going to bring that to the stress to the child. So that is why this, and there are not only these reasons where there is pressure for the child, there are also, this is one of the main reasons I am talking about, but small things like, conflict in the house between the mother and father can create a problem. There is pressure with unanswered questions. When if you see, one of the major things that we have in the co-ed school is that a question is always there, that when the girl is reaching puberty, her body is undergoing changes, there is somebody always there to support her. The lady teachers are there or the mother is there. But boys, have you ever wondered how boys grow up? They have nobody to ask what is happening. Thanks to your WhatsApp University, nowadays they have got more information than I and you have. But otherwise, growing up is a challenge. Going through that period of puberty is a challenge for boys. Even now, the information may all be wrong. We don't know what is there. So that kind of unanswered questions also create stress and tensions. So this is These are all issues which are there, and whatever you can minimize, you can minimize. As I said, if you don't get stressed, you can. If you don't take too much stress, you are cool. You are ready to go to the counselor, talk to the counselor. You are ready to take advice before doing anything. The stress will be less. If you are seeing there is conflicts, you see that the child is not affected by that, mother, father, there may be conflicts, but you can always talk behind the doors or behind when the child is not available in hushed voices. If you are going to shout and scream at each other, how do you expect the child not to be stressed? Then sickness in the family, death in the family, wherever you can protect, you protect. So showing warmth, showing love, keeping the windows, doors open for the child to come and talk to you. There is nothing more that you can do. There are two basic things. One, limit your expectation. Two, keep your doors and windows open. And third, if you have extension to it, keeping your doors and windows open means be ready to listen to advice and ready to converse, bring your problem to the table, decide, and then take action so that you are not stressing your child unnecessarily. I hope that
I think
puts
that is
everything in a
very
nutshell.
definitive advice that you have given to all our audience members, which is firstly to reduce your expectations. I think it's very important. I mean, we need to realize that children are different individuals. They have different dreams, different aspirations, different interests. So it's unfair for us to burden our dreams on them. And second is to keep the dialogue open. I think that is, I don't think either of us can emphasize that enough. It is so important for a healthy environment to keep the dialogue open. I think all of the inputs you have shared with us today, sir, have been wonderful. And as you know, so many things can be, taken by all of us and, implemented in our own respective surroundings and can make such a big difference and change to the life of students that either we touch or, children who are with us at home. It's really been a very thought provoking conversation. You have given us a lot of food for thought to reflect about tonight. And I would really like to thank you for taking out the time and
My
joining us
pleasure.
today. It's really been a pleasure, sir.
Thank you very much. I hope
Thank
I have added something to people's information.
I'm certainly sure, sir, you have, because we had a lot of questions that came in and we had to limit ourselves due to the paucity of time. So thank you very much, sir, for
Thank
taking
you.
out the time. And a big thank you to all our audience members for joining us on a weekly basis. It's your motivation that keeps us going. We'll be back again on next Thursday at 5 p.m., where we are going to be talking about sensitizing students to world affairs. Thank you very much,
Thank you very
everybody.
much.
Stay safe.
Thank you.